What you're about to hear has the potential to shift your perspective in ways you never expected. It might change the way you see yourself, the way you navigate the world, and most importantly, the way you understand the balance between kindness and strength. If you've ever felt like your generosity was overlooked, your compassion taken for granted, or your good intentions met with indifference, or worse, used against you, then this message is for you. We've been raised on the idea that kindness is enough, that if we move through life with a pure heart and good intentions, the universe will respond in kind, that the energy we put out will naturally return to us, as if life itself operates on a system of fairness and reciprocity. But let me ask you, how many times have you poured your heart into something only to receive nothing in return? How many times have you given your best, your time, your love, your effort, only to be met with coldness, indifference, or even exploitation? Instead of gratitude, you've been met with dismissal. Instead of respect, your generosity has been mistaken for weakness. It's an uncomfortable truth, isn't it? Because to acknowledge that kindness alone is not enough is to accept that the world doesn't always function the way we were led to believe. It means coming to terms with the reality that life is not a perfect reflection of our intentions. And here's what most people won't tell you. The world does not reward kindness. It rewards strength. But let's be clear, this is not an invitation to abandon your kindness. It's not a call to become cynical, ruthless, or cold. It's not about betraying who you are or suppressing your empathy. No, this is about something far more powerful, understanding that kindness, when left unprotected, is vulnerable. Kindness, without boundaries, without discernment, without the ability to enforce respect, is like an open flame left to the wind, a river with no course, a precious seed scattered on barren ground. Think of it this way. Imagine you possess the most valuable jewel in existence. It radiates with beauty, holds immense worth, and shines with an undeniable brilliance. Now imagine that you decide to share this jewel freely, believing that everyone who receives it will cherish it just as you do. But to your dismay, some barely glance at it before carelessly tossing it aside. Others take it, forgetting where it even came from, treating it as if it were their own, and only a rare few hold it with the same reverence and appreciation with which it was given. So I ask you, how long before that jewel is scratched, dulled, perhaps even shattered beyond recognition? That jewel is your kindness. When given without boundaries, without wisdom, without the power to protect it, kindness loses its value. And if you've ever felt drained, used, or taken advantage of, if you've ever given and given until you had nothing left, it's not because you were not enough. It's not because your kindness was flawed. It's because you were never taught the most fundamental truth. Kindness must be fortified by strength. And this is where so many get it wrong. Strength is not cruelty. It is not aggression, selfishness, or distrust. Setting boundaries does not make you unkind. Saying no does not make you selfish. Protecting your energy is not a betrayal of your compassion. True strength does not oppose kindness. It enhances it. Because without strength, kindness becomes self-sacrifice without meaning. Generosity without appreciation, a flower growing, wild and unguarded, waiting to be plucked by the first passing hand. And the reverse is also true. Strength without kindness is hollow. Without empathy, strength turns into something oppressive, something destructive. Power without compassion blinds, corrodes, isolates. The key is not choosing one over the other. The key is balance, to know when to extend your hand and when to pull it back, to understand when to offer grace and when to demand respect. Think back on the moments when you stayed silent, when you should have spoken up. The times you said yes when you desperately wanted to say no. The moments when you gave until you were empty, believing that if you were just good enough, selfless enough, patient enough, the world would eventually recognize your worth and repay you in kind. But life doesn't work that way. The world does not automatically reflect back what you give. Because in this world, there are those who do not think like you, who do not view kindness as a gift, but as an opportunity. Some will not appreciate your generosity. They will exploit it. Some will not cherish your empathy. They will use it to their advantage. Some will not reciprocate your love. They will drain it until there is nothing left of you. And if you don't recognize this, if you don't wake up to the reality that not everyone carries the same heart as you, then you will continue to exhaust yourself, fighting a battle that was never fair to begin with. This is not a message of fear. It is not a call to become distrustful or hardened. It is an invitation to see with clarity, to understand that not every door deserves to be opened, that not every extended hand is sincere, that not every smile is a reflection of good intentions. You are not obligated to give yourself away freely. Your energy, your love, your time, these are sacred, valuable resources, and they should never be handed out without thought or measure. And most importantly, you do not need permission to exist as you are. You do not need to constantly prove your worth by overgiving. You do not need to diminish yourself just to be accepted. Because true kindness is not self-erasure. It is not servitude. It is not an endless, unconditional offering to those who do not appreciate it. True kindness is powerful. It is discerning. It is given with intention, and most of all, it is always backed by strength. Waiting for the world to recognize your worth before you do is like waiting for the sun to rise in a windowless room. It will never happen. The harshest truth of all, the one that most people spend their whole lives avoiding, is this: no one is coming to save you. No one will hand you the recognition you deserve if you don't first claim it for yourself. No one will set the boundaries you need if you don't enforce them. And if you continue to believe that the world will treat you fairly simply because you are fair, you will find yourself in a cycle of disappointment over and over again. True strength is not just about enduring hardship. It's about knowing when to walk away. It's about the courage to stand alone rather than betray yourself for the sake of fitting in. It's about protecting your own light without allowing it to be extinguished by those who take without giving, who drain without replenishing. Look within yourself. Look at all the times you put others ahead of your own needs, the moments you said yes when your soul was screaming no, the times you allowed your own lines to be crossed, hoping that if you were just understanding enough, just kind enough, everything would balance out in the end. Now ask yourself, why? Why? Does standing up for yourself feel so difficult? Why do you feel guilty when you put yourself first? Why have you been conditioned to believe that your worth is measured by how much you can give to others, rather than how much you honor and preserve for yourself? The world does not need more good people who allow themselves to be consumed, drained, and discarded. It does not need more kindness that comes at the expense of self-respect. What the world needs are good people who are strong, who refuse to shrink, who are not afraid to speak their truth, even when their voice shakes, who do not let their light be dimmed by those who mistake their compassion for weakness. And so the question is, are you ready to become one of those people? Because here's the truth that no one told you, the lesson that might be difficult to hear but is absolutely necessary. Being good is not enough. Goodness without strength is a slow form of self-destruction. It is a silent surrender, a life spent waiting for fairness in a world that does not operate by that rule. But goodness, fortified by strength, that is the path to true freedom. So stop waiting for permission. Stop looking for validation from those who do not see your worth. Stop believing the lie that setting boundaries is selfish, that protecting yourself is cruel, that saying no is a betrayal of your nature. Because in reality, there is nothing more powerful than a person who knows their own light, but also understands their own darkness. And if you are willing to look in the mirror and acknowledge both, if you are ready to step into the full power that has always existed within you, then this is your moment, not to change who you are, but to become the strongest, most conscious, most unbreakable version of yourself, because the world does not need more self-sacrificing souls who allow themselves to be depleted. It needs good people who are powerful, and the decision to become one of them is yours alone. You've been taught to believe that the universe rewards the good, that if your heart is pure, doors will open for you, that if you give love, love will return to you, that if you act with integrity, life will honor that integrity with clear paths and golden opportunities. But is that truly how the world works? How many times have you done everything right, only to be met with closed doors? How many times have you watched others take shortcuts, manipulate, deceive, only to see them get ahead while you struggle, waiting for life to play fair? It hurts, doesn't it? To realize that merit alone does not dictate success. That good is not always rewarded, and bad is not always punished. That life does not operate on the neat and predictable script you were promised. But no matter how uncomfortable it may be, the truth remains. The world does not reward goodness. It rewards intelligence. It rewards those who understand the invisible rules of the game. Not the most ruthless, not the most selfish, but those who know how to navigate reality with both heart and strategy. And if you refuse to see these rules, if you cling to the belief that being noble is enough to make everything fall into place, then you will continue to lose battles you didn't even know you were fighting. Imagine yourself lost in the middle of an ocean, swimming tirelessly, believing that if you just keep going, sooner or later you'll reach the shore. You trust that effort alone will save you, that persistence will eventually carry you to solid ground. But now, look around. Others are not swimming. They are building boats. They are learning how to use the wind, how to navigate, how to move forward without exhausting themselves. And you? You are still treading water, with exhaustion pulling you under, believing that if you just push harder, if you just endure a little more, the sea itself will carry you to safety. But the ocean does not work that way. It is not just strength that saves you. It is wisdom. It is the ability to read the currents. It is knowing when to swim and when to let the waves carry you. It is having the clarity to build, not just endure. And that is the shift you must make. Stop merely surviving. Stop simply enduring. Stop believing that sheer effort will be enough, because true power comes not just from kindness and not just from strength, but from the ability to see clearly, to think strategically, and to move through the world with both wisdom and resilience. It's time to stop waiting. It's time to stop swimming against the current without direction. It's time to build your boat. Mastering life isn't about fighting against every current. It's about learning to read the tides, to build your own tools, and to know when to resist and when to let the flow take you in the right direction. If you are still holding on to the belief that life is inherently fair, that every good action will automatically bring a reward, then you are playing a game that does not exist. Not because the world is inherently cruel, but because the world is neutral. It does not move according to your intentions, but according to your actions. And more importantly, your ability to understand its unspoken rules. And if you fail to grasp this, you will keep feeling betrayed. You will keep wondering why, despite always doing the right thing, despite following the path you were told would lead to happiness and success, the results just aren't there. But here is something you must understand. The problem is not your kindness. It is not your capacity to love, to trust, to want the best for others. It is not your empathy or your willingness to give. The problem is how you use that kindness. Kindness, when given without limits, without discernment, without strategy, turns into a liability. If you offer it freely to anyone and everyone, you become just another resource for those who do understand how to navigate this game. You become easy to manipulate. You become the stepping stone others will use to advance their own interests, often without even a second thought. Because while you hold on to the idea that the world operates under a system of justice, there are those who have already realized that the rules are unwritten. And because they understand this, they know how to bend those invisible rules to their advantage, without hesitation, without guilt, without second-guessing themselves. But let's be clear, this is not a call to become like them. It is not about betraying your essence or numbing your emotions. It is not about adopting cruelty or abandoning your heart. It's about learning to see what you have avoided seeing for too long. It's about recognizing that not every outstretched hand is extended in goodwill, that not everyone who smiles at you has your best interests in mind. That naivete is not a sign of purity, it is a sign of vulnerability. And vulnerability, when left unguarded, is nothing more than an open invitation to be exploited. Think about it. How many times have you given opportunities to people who did not deserve them? How many times have you forgiven without there being true repentance? How many times have you explained the obvious, hoping that this time someone would finally change, only to realize that they never had any intention of changing at all? If you keep waiting for the world to operate according to your own internal code, you will live in a constant state of disappointment, because the world does not adjust itself to fit your expectations. It does not bend to accommodate your hopes. It does not automatically reward goodness, nor does it punish wrongdoing on your behalf. It is you who must learn to navigate within it. Look around you. Observe those who have reached the places you long to reach, those who advance without being consumed by frustration or exhaustion. What do they do differently? They are not necessarily the most talented, nor the most virtuous. They are the ones who understand how to play the game with the pieces they have. They are the ones who know when to speak and when to stay silent, when to trust and when to withhold, when to push forward and when to wait for the right moment. And you, who have believed that doing the right thing is enough, you are still waiting for destiny to do its part, still hoping that justice will step in, still expecting fairness to intervene on your behalf. But destiny does not interfere in this game. You have to wake up. You have to open your eyes and see that as much as you may want to believe in the purity of the world, you cannot afford to move through it blindfolded. You cannot keep offering your time, your energy, your love as if they were limitless. You cannot keep giving to those who only take without ever giving back. And most importantly, you cannot keep allowing your kindness to make you weak, because true kindness is not self-destruction. It is not martyrdom. It is not an endless sacrifice for those who do not appreciate it. True kindness is intelligent. It is discerning. It is selective. It understands that not every battle is worth fighting, that not every person is worth saving, that not every cause is worth your energy. True kindness is never wasted on those who do not value it. It does not deplete itself. It does not allow itself to be treated as a bargaining chip. It does not surrender to those who see it as a tool to be used for their own benefit. And if you want your kindness to have real impact, if you want it to matter, then you must learn to wield it wisely. Stop apologizing for setting boundaries. Stop feeling guilty for choosing who you give your energy to. Stop waiting for life to deliver justice to you on a silver platter. Because justice in this world is not automatic. It is not a divine equation that always balances out in your favor. Justice is something you create, something you enforce, something you claim, not with wishes, not with blind faith, but with action. And if you do not learn how to claim it, you will continue falling into the same traps over and over again. So the real question is, until when? How much more do you need to lose before you realize that it is time to change? How many more times? Do you have to feel betrayed, exhausted, and unappreciated before you finally decide to rewrite the rules you've been living by? Because the power to change your story is, and always has been, in your hands. And now, it's up to you to use it. How much more do you need to lose before you finally accept that being good is not enough? How many more times will you watch others, those who understand the rules of the game, continue to advance while you stand still, waiting for life to reward you simply for playing fair? Change will not come from the outside. It will not arrive in the form of recognition. It will not fall from the sky as a miracle opportunity. It will not manifest through the sudden transformation of those around you. Change begins when you decide. When you decide that you will no longer walk through life with your eyes closed. When you decide that your kindness will not be your cage, but your weapon. When you understand that being good does not mean being naive, that trusting does not mean being blind, that loving does not mean allowing yourself to be consumed. You hold power within you, more than you've ever realized. But power without direction is wasted, and kindness without wisdom is a trap. If you truly want to make a difference, if you truly want to honor your essence without being devoured by a world that does not always play fair, then it is time to wake up. It is time to learn. It is time to open your eyes. It is time to move with the same intelligence with which you have always loved, because kindness alone is not enough. But kindness combined with wisdom, that is an unstoppable force. You have given too much, more than you had, more than you should have. You have extended your hands with the hope that the world would recognize the value of what you offer. But instead, you've watched those same hands come back to you empty, exhausted, wounded, and yet you keep giving. You keep believing that if you just give enough, sooner or later, the universe will return the same to you. But what happens if that day never comes? How much longer are you willing to wait? How much more of yourself are you willing to lose waiting? For a recognition that was never promised to you, you were taught that to give is noble, that to be generous is to be good, that to sacrifice is an act of love. But what no one told you, what no one prepared you for, is that there is an invisible line, a line between generosity and self-destruction, between love and self-abandonment. And without even realizing it, you crossed that line long ago. You became someone who gives without limit, without pause, without reserve. And now, you wonder why you feel so drained, why it feels like the weight of the world rests entirely on your shoulders. Why, despite always being there for others, no one seems to be there for you. But listen carefully, it is not selfish to want to receive. It is not weakness to need rest. It is not cruelty to choose yourself. But you have been made to believe otherwise. You have been conditioned to feel that if you stop giving, you will disappoint those who have grown accustomed to receiving from you. That if you set boundaries, others will see you as cold, distant, inaccessible. But here's the truth. Sacrifice does not make you more valuable. It does not make you more worthy. It does not make you more deserving of love. It only makes you easier to consume. The problem has never been your kindness. The problem is the belief that for your kindness to be meaningful, it must be infinite. That for your love to be real, it must be unconditional. That for your presence to matter, you must always be available. But who taught you that? Who made you believe that your worth depends on how much you can endure? That in order to be loved, You must be willing to break yourself. Look at the places where you have become indispensable. The relationships where you have become the unshakable pillar, the eternal source of support, the refuge that is always there. Now ask yourself, would those people do the same for you? Have they ever looked at you with the same depth with which you have looked at them? Have they ever truly noticed your exhaustion, your sadness, your need for rest? And if the answer is no, then maybe it's time to ask yourself a far more important question. Why do you keep allowing it? Why do you keep believing that if you just give a little more, if you just stay a little longer, if you just prove your worth a little harder, someday they will understand, someday they will see, someday they will finally value all that you have done? But that day never comes, because those who have grown accustomed to receiving without effort rarely recognize the effort of others. And so you keep giving more than you have, waiting for validation that never arrives. Feeling as though your life has become an endless cycle of emptying yourself, only to be left with nothing. Maybe you have convinced yourself that this is what it means to be good, that true kindness is giving without expectation, that this is simply who you are, your purpose, your mission in this world. But deep down, there is a voice inside of you, a voice that screams, a voice that pleads, a voice that asks for rest, to be seen, to be valued, to matter. And you have silenced that voice with excuses, with justifications, with the desperate hope that one day things will change. But they won't, not unless you change first, not unless you finally decide that your kindness is worth more than being endlessly taken for granted, not unless you choose to redefine what it means to be good. Because real kindness, powerful kindness, does not destroy itself for others. It does not give endlessly to those who only take. It does not break itself just to be loved. Real kindness is strong. It is wise, it is sovereign, and it does not wait for the world to recognize its worth. It claims it. You tell yourself that one day things will change, that one day the people around you will finally see, that they'll recognize how much you've given, how much you've endured, how much of yourself you've sacrificed. But they won't, because no one is going to stop and tell you to stop giving. No one is going to remind you to set limits. No one is going to step in and say, you've done enough. Now it's time to take care of yourself. As long as you continue to be the one who holds everything together, the one who helps, the one who is always there, then you will continue to be useful. And as long as you continue to be useful, you will continue to be consumed, because true kindness is not about giving until there is nothing left of you. It is not about offering yourself without measure, without pause, without condition. It is not about being an inexhaustible resource for others while quietly draining yourself in the process. True kindness is knowing when to stop, when to say no, when to recognize that your energy is not infinite, that your well-being matters just as much as anyone else's, that your life cannot and should not revolve solely around the needs of others. For so long you've carried this image in your mind, the candle that lights the way for others, even as it burns itself down to nothing, the fountain that quenches everyone's thirst, even when it runs dry. But you've forgotten something essential. A candle that burns itself out can no longer give light. A dry fountain cannot nourish anyone. And if you keep emptying yourself into others, giving and giving without limit, one day there will be nothing left of you. And when that day comes, the ones who took so freely from you will not be the ones to fill you back up. Not because they are cruel, but because they never learned to, because you never taught them that you needed something too. For too long, you have justified why you keep giving. You've told yourself it's out of love, out of loyalty, out of commitment. But deep down, if you really listen, there is another truth. A truth you don't want to admit. You keep giving because you are afraid. Afraid of what will happen if you stop. Afraid that if you stop being the one who is always there, people will leave. Afraid that if you stop being useful, you will stop being loved. But listen to me. Love that depends on your exhaustion is not love. Respect that only exists when you are sacrificing yourself is not respect. A connection that requires you to give endlessly while receiving nothing in return is not a real connection. And until you understand this, you will remain trapped in the same cycle. You will keep believing that it is your duty to give until you are empty. You will keep thinking that it is wrong to choose yourself. You will keep letting the world take from you without ever questioning it. But here's the truth. You cannot keep waiting for someone to save you from this. You cannot keep waiting for people to suddenly realize they are draining you. You cannot keep waiting for life to magically reward you for everything you've given. You have to make that decision for yourself. You have to be the one to say enough. You have to be the one to recognize that your energy, your time, your love, these are sacred resources that should never be wasted on those who do not value them. And no, that is not selfishness, that is not cruelty, that is not abandonment, that is self-respect, that is survival, that is the realization that your existence has value beyond what you can do for others. And if anyone ever made you believe otherwise, if they ever told you that being good meant enduring, sacrificing, holding on in silence, then it is time to question everything. It is time to reclaim all the pieces of yourself you have given away without measure. It is time to remember that you were not born to be consumed. You were born to live fully, freely, without the weight of those who only know how to take. And you do not need anyone's permission to stop wearing yourself down. You do not need a justification to choose yourself. You do not need to wait for the world to understand your exhaustion. It is enough that you understand it. Because the truth is, your kindness is not measured by how much you can endure. It is measured by how much you can protect yourself while still being true to who you are. And the real question is not whether others will ever understand this. The real question is, how much more do you need to lose before you understand it yourself? Music fades. You have spent so much of your life trying to change others, believing that if you just show them enough love, enough patience, enough understanding, eventually they will wake up. Eventually they will see what you see. Eventually, they will realize their own potential, recognize the harm they have caused, and finally understand. But it hasn't happened, and yet you are still here, still caught in the same invisible struggle, still wondering why, despite everything you have given, nothing has changed. There is something difficult to accept, something that contradicts everything you've believed about human nature. Not everyone wants to change. Not everyone seeks growth. Not everyone wants to see the truth. And perhaps hardest of all, not everyone wants to be saved. And yet, you have spent your energy trying to light a flame in those who only know darkness, trying to awaken those who have chosen to remain asleep. And the question is, how much longer will you keep trying? Some people will never wake up. Some will never change, no matter how much love, patience, or effort you pour into them. And that is a reality you must accept. Growth cannot be forced, nor can transformation be demanded. No matter how much you want to help, no matter how clearly you see the path ahead, change can only come from within. The problem is that you have convinced yourself that you can make a difference in the lives of others, that if you love them enough, if you support them unconditionally, if you show them another way, eventually they will take it. But what happens when they don't? When they keep making the same mistakes, when they continue choosing toxicity, mediocrity, or self-destruction, when they reject the very things that could help them grow, you start questioning yourself. You wonder if maybe you didn't do enough, if maybe you could have tried harder, if maybe their lack of change is somehow your fault. But it isn't, it never was. It is not in your hands to change anyone. You cannot force someone to see what they are not ready to see. You cannot make someone value what they are not yet capable of valuing. You cannot teach someone to treat you with love and respect if they have not even learned to love and respect themselves. And if you continue trying, if you keep exhausting yourself in an effort to fix what does not want to be fixed, you will only end up broken in the process. Look at what it has already cost you. Look at the years you've spent in relationships that drained you, the countless efforts to make someone understand something that was so clear to you. Look at the nights filled with frustration, the energy wasted, the pain of realizing that no matter how much you gave, the other person remained the same. So how much longer are you willing to endure this before you finally accept that some people simply do not want to be saved? There is something incredibly liberating about accepting this truth. When you finally understand that you are not responsible for anyone else's journey, that you are not obligated to carry the weight of someone else's decisions, that your peace is not a price you must pay to keep others comfortable, you begin to see things clearly. At some point, the real question is no longer why they won't change, but why you keep trying to change them. What is it that keeps you tied to them? What fear is stopping you from letting go? Attachment can be deceptive. It disguises itself as love, as loyalty, as commitment. It convinces you that leaving is an act of betrayal, that staying is your responsibility, that if you let go, you are abandoning someone who needs you. But the greatest betrayal is not the one you fear committing against others. It is the one you commit against yourself when you hold on to something that is destroying you. It is the moment you justify the presence of people who have shown time and time again that they will never be able to give you what you need. You cannot keep ignoring the signs, convincing yourself that if you just try a little harder, if you just love them a little more, if you just give them one more chance, everything will finally change. Because sometimes the greatest act of love is not staying, it is leaving. Sometimes the deepest form of respect is not giving another opportunity, but recognizing that you have already given enough. And sometimes the ultimate proof of strength is not holding on, but having the courage to let go. Take a step back and look at the people you have poured your energy into. Have they truly risen to meet you? Have they given you the same in return? Not in words, not in empty promises, but in their actions. Has your presence been a blessing to them while theirs has been a burden to you? If the answer is yes, then deep down, you already know what you need to do. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you wish them harm or regret the love you gave. It means accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. It means understanding that not all paths can be walked together, that choosing yourself is not an act of selfishness, but an act of self-respect. It is difficult. It is painful. It is the silent farewell to a version of yourself that once believed love alone could fix everything. But love is not enough when there is no willingness to grow. It cannot be the only thing holding a relationship, a friendship, or a connection together. You cannot be the only one trying to mend what the other refuses to acknowledge is even broken. And if they are not willing to walk beside you, the answer is not to drag them forward. It is to continue on your own path. You have spent too much time waiting for them to change, justifying their lack of commitment, their lack of effort, their lack of reciprocity. But the waiting is over. You cannot keep postponing your peace, hoping that one day they will wake up, that one day they will appreciate you, that one day they will fight for you the way you have fought for them. Because if someone has not changed by now, it is because they do not want to. And if they do not want to, nothing you do will change them. The only person you can save is yourself, and it is your responsibility to do so. No more waiting, no more excuses, no more sacrificing your well-being in the name of a possibility that will never come. So the only question left is this: How much longer are you going to fight for someone who is not even willing to fight for themselves? You have felt the weight of silence. You have been in rooms full of people and still felt completely alone. You have given your best, been the one who listens, who understands, who stays when everyone else leaves. But when the night falls and everything is quiet, you feel it, the emptiness, a space inside you that has grown larger with every broken promise, every absence that went unnoticed, every word you needed but never heard. Because loneliness is not always about being alone. Sometimes it is being surrounded by people and realizing that no one really knows you. It is sharing your energy with those who only take, who never stop to ask how you are, who assume you will always be there because you have never known how to say no. It is realizing that you have built bridges to others, never noticing that no one has built a bridge back to you. And so, you have learned to fill those empty spaces with distractions, with noise, with company that never truly sees you. You have told yourself that you do not need more, that what you have is enough, that if you just keep giving, keep showing up, keep loving, eventually someone will do the same for you. But deep down, you already know the truth. You have felt it in the quiet moments, in the restless nights, in the silences that speak louder than words. And now, the only question left is this: what are you going to do about it? You've been there for others in moments when no one was there for you. You've carried the weight of connections where you gave more than you should, hoping that one day the balance would return in your favor. But the truth is, balance does not come on its own. You cannot spend your life waiting for others to offer you what they have never learned to give. You cannot keep filling the empty spaces with superficial company just because you are afraid of facing yourself. Loneliness is not a curse. It is not the enemy. It is the purest reflection of who you are when there is no one else around. And if it scares you, it is not because of the absence of others. It is because it forces you to face the questions you have spent so long avoiding. Who are you when you are not holding anyone up? What remains of you when you stop giving? How much of your identity has been built on what you can offer rather than who you truly are? You have conditioned yourself to see loneliness as something to be avoided. You have surrounded yourself with people, hoping that their presence would erase that lingering emptiness. But the truth is, the worst kind of loneliness is not being alone. It is being with others and still feeling invisible. It is sharing your life with people who do not truly understand you, who never dig deep, who never hold you the way you have held them. You cannot keep running away from loneliness because that means running away from yourself. You cannot keep filling your life with empty interactions just to drown out the silence, because it is in that silence that you finally begin to listen. It is where you realize who you are without the influence of others. It is where you separate what you truly want from what you have simply accepted because it was convenient, available, or expected. Loneliness is not a punishment. It is a sacred space. It is an opportunity to rebuild yourself, free from the interference of external expectations. It is the moment to sit with yourself and ask, is the life I am living truly mine, or has it been shaped by my need to be accepted? It is the foundation where you begin to cultivate relationships that are not born out of fear of being alone, but from the certainty that you would rather wait for something real than settle for anything less. It is not easy. It is not comfortable. It is not what you may have wanted to hear, but it is necessary. Because if you continue surrounding yourself with people just to avoid feeling empty, you will never know what it is like to truly be accompanied. You will never know what it means to be seen, to be chosen, to be valued. You will never learn to distinguish between those who are with you because of who you are and those who stay only because it is convenient for them. It is time to ask the uncomfortable questions. It is time to look around and see which connections are real and which exist only out of habit. It is time to ask yourself, would I rather continue feeling alone in the company of others, or do I have the courage to stand alone until I find something? Real society tells you that you need people to be happy, that without a network of friends, an active social life, or constant interaction, you are somehow incomplete. But what no one teaches you is that the worst kind of incompleteness is being surrounded by people with whom you cannot be yourself. The worst kind of emptiness is not solitude. It is sharing yourself with those who have never truly seen you. You have to learn to be alone, not as a permanent state, but as proof that your existence is not dependent on external validation, that your worth is not measured by the number of people around you, that you do not seek love out of fear, but out of choice, that you do not give in order to receive, but because you have so much within you that you can share without exhausting yourself. Loneliness, when you stop fearing it and start embracing it, transforms. It ceases to be a burden and becomes a tool. It becomes a filter, eliminating what no longer serves you. It becomes clarity that you never had before. It becomes the certainty that you would rather sit in genuine silence than engage in meaningless conversation, that you would rather wait patiently for something real than settle for a love that is only half present, that you would rather welcome true companionship than accept someone's presence just because it fills the space. Stop fearing loneliness. Stop seeing it as a failure. Stop running toward anyone who offers you company just because you do not want to face the void. Stop accepting relationships that do not nourish you, interactions that do not elevate you, conversations that do not challenge you. Because when you learn to be alone, when you stop seeing solitude as an enemy, something shifts inside of you. Something awakens, something changes when you stop searching. When you no longer feel the need to desperately seek the presence of others, when you realize that your own company is enough, everything shifts. You no longer settle for shallow connections just to avoid being alone. You no longer accept whatever comes your way out of fear that nothing better will arrive. Instead, you wait, not because you are lonely, but because you have finally learned that your energy is valuable, that your presence is not something to be given away without thought. And then something unexpected happens. The things you once chased now begin to find you. The right people enter your life not to fill a void, but to walk beside you as equals. Relationships form naturally, without the weight of expectations, without the pressure of needing to be saved, or to save someone else. For the first time, connections feel real, effortless, and genuine. It is not an easy process, and it does not happen overnight, but it is necessary. Now that you understand this, what will you do with this truth? Will you continue running toward the first person who offers you company just to escape the silence? Or will you stay long enough with yourself to finally realize that you were never truly alone? For so long, you have believed that being good is enough, that nobility is its own reward, that acting with integrity means the universe will return the same to you. But life does not work that way. It does not operate under an absolute moral code, nor does it balance the scales just because you expect it to. You have seen people without scruples move forward effortlessly while you struggle to hold onto your values. You have felt the injustice of giving your best and receiving the least in return. You have lived in the constant hope that one day the world will recognize what has always been inside you. You were taught to be patient, to suppress your anger, to forgive without hesitation, to ignore betrayal. You were told that kindness itself would bring answers, that all you had to do was trust that things would fall into place. But the truth is, waiting is not enough. Wishing for fairness does not make it real. You cannot build your life on the blind faith that people will always be just, that love will always be returned, that respect will be automatic. It isn't. and it never has been. You have spent years repressing parts of yourself to fit into an idea of what it means to be a good person. You have avoided confrontation. You have remained silent when you should have spoken. You have endured situations that hurt you because you believed it was the right thing to do. But beneath it all, there is something you have tried to ignore. There is a fire inside you, a strength you have buried, a force you have been told to suppress. This is not about becoming cruel. It's not about abandoning your kindness. It is about recognizing that true kindness is not weakness. It is not submission. It is not self-sacrifice without purpose. True kindness is knowing your own strength, understanding that you have the ability to stand up for yourself, to set limits, to demand respect. It is choosing when and how to act, not because you are afraid of confrontation, but because you understand the value of your energy and the importance of protecting it. You cannot keep waiting for life to be fair. You cannot keep believing that if you give enough, if you love enough, everything will work out on its own. You cannot keep fearing the parts of yourself that you have been taught to suppress. In the very part of yourself that you have avoided, in the emotions you have tried to bury, lies your true power. Not a power meant to harm or destroy, but a power meant to balance. A power that ensures your kindness is no longer taken for granted. A power that allows you to remain strong without losing yourself in the process. Look within yourself and acknowledge what you have tried to silence. Feel the anger you once ignored, the helplessness you felt in moments of injustice, the frustration of every limit you failed to set. You have spent so much time taming these emotions, believing they were dangerous, believing they made you less pure, less kind. But the problem was never your emotions. The problem was never your strength. The problem was believing that being good meant turning off everything that made you powerful. You cannot continue rejecting that part of you. You cannot keep ignoring the reality that there are moments when love is not enough, when forgiveness is not the answer, when the only way forward is to protect yourself with the same intensity that you have always protected others. This is not about becoming like those who have hurt you. It is about making sure that no one ever does it again. You were never taught to be strong. You were taught to be compliant, to be patient, to trust blindly, to endure in silence. But now you are beginning to remember. You are beginning to see the truth. The question is no longer whether the world will ever recognize your worth. The question is, will you? You have been taught to give in for the sake of harmony, to prioritize peace at all costs, to silence your needs in order to maintain balance. But peace without justice is not peace, it is submission. Harmony without response is not harmony, it is slavery disguised as tranquility. You have spent your life believing that conceding is the only option, that suppressing what you feel is the price of being accepted, that keeping quiet is the way to avoid conflict. But every time you betrayed yourself to keep the peace, you lost a piece of yourself in the process. You cannot keep living in fear of inconvenience, of disappointing others, of being judged. You cannot keep fearing your own power. For so long, you have believed that being good meant being accepted, that kindness ensured love, that if you simply acted with purity, life itself would protect you. But if that acceptance requires you to shrink, if that affection is conditional on never asserting yourself, if that protection only exists when you remain silent, then it was never real to begin with. Inside you, there is a truth that does not require validation. There is an instinct that has always been there, trying to guide you, whispering to you in moments of doubt. But you have silenced it, fearing what it might demand of you if you truly listened. It is time to stop ignoring it. It is time to take it back. You do not need to become someone else. You do not need to abandon your essence. You only need to allow yourself to be whole, to be good and strong, noble and fierce, compassionate and unwavering. You do not need to fear the gaze of others, nor should you carry guilt for embracing your full nature. Transformation is not a final destination. It is not a point you reach and stop. It is an ongoing process of stripping away everything you are not and embracing everything you have always been. It is reclaiming your humanity and turning it into your greatest strength. It is letting go of the idea that you need permission to exist fully. You were not born to be anyone's shadow. You were not placed in this world to mold yourself into the expectations of others. You were never meant to live half-heartedly. It is time to stand in the certainty that you do not have to apologize for being whole. It is time to reclaim your voice. It is time to let the strength that has always existed within you finally rise to the surface. Because kindness without power is useless, but kindness with power, that changes everything.